Hello, good morning, welcome back. Today we're doing skirts. That's so fun. We are going to be making up a lot of it as we go along. I did do a little test with this bit of scrap fabric that I have here, and I actually cut these into proper skirt shapes into like an A-line skirt. And then I had a little bit of extra, so I put a ruffle on the bottom, but then the ruffle actually ended up being shorter than the hem of the skirt. But I was like, you know what, actually that's fine if this is like the bottom layer that goes over the petticoat, because our petticoat has enough problems as it is. Yeah, but then I was like, wait, because I already put that on, now I have to take the extra length out of the waist, so we still have a lot to figure out on this skirt. I would also like to say I will be learning how to cartridge pleat, but I'm going to be making up a lot of what we're doing here, okay? And that is the joy of crafting and sewing, is that you do have the freedom to just make it up as you go along. If you missed my cyanotyping video, I actually custom dyed some organza that I had laying around to be the top piece of this skirt. I think I'm still going to be adding a little bit of something to it. I just don't know what yet, and I'm probably going to do that once it's in a circle shape, maybe even once it's pleated. I don't know for sure. But I also have this gorgeous chiffon fabric that is like matte on one side, and then it has this shiny coating on the other. I have had this for a while now, and I think we're just gonna use this to go right under the organza and hope that it just like darkens it a little bit and gives it a little more of that like blue look that we're missing so far right now. I think we're gonna go for the shiny side out, because when I saw the dress in person, it had like a very mirrored something. It had like a very shiny material right underneath that printed organza. Like there was a few spots where you could see it, and it also had a cute little ruffler on the bottom, and I was like, cute. Okay, so we're gonna be figuring that out. I know I'm gonna have to hem quite a bit off of the white organza, so maybe we'll use that on the bottom of like one of these layers, and it'll be that cute little ruffle. I don't know for sure, but I do know I am going to attempt like a small cartridge pleat with this, because I don't have as much of this material as I do the white organza, so I can't do them both at once. But I am just going to, obviously, because this is from another project, cut off these rough edges and use those for the bodice. And then whatever's left, we'll see if we're just gathering or how we're gonna do it. We'll just get started on this. Minus this skirt, sorry you missed it. I just started making moves because I wanted to test out how the hoop was looking, honestly. We're just gonna make it up as we go along, so welcome. This isn't a tutorial. From the small amount of research I did on my cartridge pleats, you want to start by folding over the edge that is going to be the waist of your fabric and pinning it flat, if not sewing it down to create like almost a hem. And then from there you're going to create two separate lines of dots that are equidistant apart from each other. For my cartridge pleating, I tested out both 1-inch gaps and half-inch gaps, and the half-inch gaps were exactly what I wanted. They were perfect. So I did 2 rows of half-inch dots, half an inch apart from each other, as well as half an inch from the edge of the fabric. And those dots are going to be where I sew 2 separate lines of thread through to pull in and get really, really even gathers along the waistband. Because I was using a lot of materials I had on hand for this costume, I actually used thread that I pulled out of the old hoop skirt that I cannibalized for this costume. If you watched the underwear video, you know what I'm talking about. So the threads that I used were actually super, super long, and they were also really thick. And it ended up being the perfect amount of thread to do the entire length of the waist. And I just kind of gathered sections as I went. Like I would sew all the way to the end of my thread basically, and then go through and kind of gather it all into the little tight gathers that it's supposed to be in before sewing some more. It really broke up the tediousness of cartridge pleating, at least for me. Okay, we are happy skirt people once more. This looks different than you last saw it. I've been doing some work. I'm short 2 skirts right now. Hi, big guy. You want to say hi? No, you just want to sniff me? So some things have happened, and I haven't documented them at all. My dog thinks that I'm talking to him. Hi, Frank! Okay, so this is the blue skirt, or it was, and I've basically just gone through my stash and I've found some other materials that I was like, oh, that would be cute in there. There's this one that it's actually really sparkly, but I did the wrong side out so that it's not super duper. Then there's this one that's really thick and it's kind of heavy to give it, you know, a little more or something. And then I had some scrap white. So I've just kind of gone in and I've made it a stripy skirt. And hopefully this is now big enough to fit her on the bottom hoop. I need to measure it because my bottom hoop, I think I've said before, it's about 4 yards. And then I have also gone through on my petticoat. If you watch my undergarments video, then you will have seen this petticoat already. But I found some lace material and I was just looking for something to kind of blend the edge of these layers a little bit more. So they are just hand stitched on for now, and I need to go through and top stitch them and iron them all on. And then I also had enough to put another little bottom one underneath the tulle, so that it will not get sucked inside of the hoop anymore. And so I just have a couple hems on here to finish. But we can get back to work on this baby because I finally got this and the sun is out. So I'm kind of just waiting for the landscapers to go away because last time I did this, the landscapers were out there and they were working and they're using their leaf blowers now, which, you know, like I'm really glad there's no wind outside right now, but I can't go utilize that because the landscapers. I have some stuff to do in the meantime while this is actually processing this time, because last time I was literally just sitting there. But I am going to fill these with water now. If you did not watch my cyanotyping video, highly recommend go watch that. We're just doing a little updates on the like 2 panels of this that didn't quite get enough. I'm actually going to cut probably a yard off of this, maybe a little less than a yard off of the skirt fabric because I do need it for the bodice. And I think I decided that 5 yards was enough for the skirt because this is 6 right now, and like I do want all of this oomph, but I don't quite need all of it at the hem, if you feel me. Like I don't need that yard on there. 5 will be plenty. So I actually don't need to order more fabric. I can just keep using this and everything will be happy funky dory. Yeah, and then I also decided that this lovely, lovely amount of hem that we're going to have at the bottom is going to become all of our ruffles. So yeah, because there are quite a few ruffles, and I am going to cyanotype this and then we will do some dyeing on it still, because this is still not quite dark enough, but I want to get this finished up first and see if it makes a difference at all. So I actually may just cut the yard off of this skirt and only do that yard with the cyanotyping. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe while that's processing, I do some dye on the skirt and add like the black and a little bit of teal that I want to add. But let me actually just go measure this and sew this and make sure that it is going to work and get the underskirts all done so that we can double check how this looks over top of this new skirt. Because I also had another idea on how to kind of blend the top, because on hers it's very dark at the top and mine is very light still. That's why we're dyeing. We're gonna be doing some really artistic dyes, I think. I just need to do some math before we get there. Check out my cyanotyping video if you want to know more on this process, but just know I did add more black and aqua dye here. Here's the situation. So the bodice is done, so that means that we can finally figure out exactly where this needs to lay to be mostly covered. I've got it up high, and then we can hem it, and then once we have all of this extra material from off of the bottom, I think I'm gonna use part of it, because it's like this much. It's like a foot, if I had to guess. But I'm gonna use part of it for the waistband, and then part of it, I'm actually going to do a little ruffle. Yeah, that's where we're at. I also probably should steam it potentially before we do any hemming. You know what, it's fine. But I'm actually just going to, I have it pinned on the side here and in the center right here. So I'm just gonna measure those 2 points and figure out where the kind of middle point for the hem is for there. And then I think I'm going to do, I don't know, because since I put on the cyanotyping, this material does not melt, it just burns, which is so great. I found that out the hard way. on these, but I don't feel like gluing the entire hem, so I think we're gonna have to do like an actual hem. But I'll probably just like run it, I'll cut it, then I'll run it through the overlock, and then I'll probably just do like a double fold, like a fold the underlock, the overlock, and then fold it up an inch. Or maybe I won't even do that. You know what, maybe I'll cut it with the pinking shears, actually. Oh, I should do that. I should cut the hem with the pinking shears, because then I don't have to finish anything. Well, I would just fold it up an inch probably, but that saves me a lot. Actually, yeah, I'm totally using the pinking shears. I haven't used these in forever, and I am using them constantly now, which I love. Oh my god, it's such an easy way to finish seams. I actually have a couple skirt updates, and those are for the underskirts. So I know I was saying that this blue skirt was like a few inches too long, and rather than take that out of the waist, I actually did like a kind of general measurement, and I just took it out of the bottom, where this was just this single like kind of ruffle layer that wasn't quite a ruffle, because it actually ended up being a smaller amount of fabric, just barely, than the hem of the skirt. Oops. Anyways, so I basically just took a little section of it and I folded it up, and then I actually ended up hand stitching this because I was watching a lot of anime and it was raining, and I was just hand sewing, and it was just like such a good vibe. But I just took and I hand stitched it like together, and then I had this lace that I was also adding to the petticoat to try to dissolve these like lines some more under this skirt. It obviously didn't work great, but now there's cute lace on my petticoat. Anyways, I just stuck some lace under there too, so it has this kind of like nicer like frilly edge, and it is now pretty much, it's like the perfect length. It's like perfectly floor length. Hang on, we're gonna readjust so I can show you what I did to the other skirt, because I made some choices on it. So I basically almost have enough. I'm like a foot short now to make it all the way around the bottom hoop, and so I found my last little bit of fabric, and I've already just split it into fourths and then put my little notches in, so that when I take it down to my serger, I can just serge it all together, and then we'll just run a gathering stitch along the one edge that everything is lined up on, because the other edge is a hack show, because it's going to be the hem. That actually doesn't look terrible. It's over here that looks really bad. Anyways, yeah, that's our skirt update. The white is a little harsh, but it's pretty much just on the sides, and I didn't even have to throw in this blue tulle that I found. Like, maybe I should anyways. I also thought I had way more of this than I do. Oh, I guess it's 2 pieces. I could still throw this in. I don't really need to though. And then I also cut this off, and yeah. And then once this is all figured out and situated, I can sew everything that is not a circle yet into a circle, and get this all gathered and get these 2 sewn together. I think I'm actually just gonna sew these together. Well, actually, I haven't decided yet, but I don't want to have that many waistbands. You know, I'll just sew them together, and if I decide I want this skirt, because this skirt is the one that could be for something else, if I decide I want it later, then I'll use it. I'll take it apart. I love recycling costumes. But that's our update. The sparkle fabric the wrong way actually looks so good underneath this. Like, it actually looks so good with the dark skirt underneath it. Okay, that's all I gotta say for now. Good updates. Good updates. When I'm doing just a very basic waistband on a skirt, I usually like to do a 3-inch total waistband. So that gives me a 1/2 inch of seam allowance on either side, and then folded in half, my waistband will come out to 1 inch across.
that's just how I like to do it. That's my preferred waistband, so that's exactly what I'm doing here. And then for the other waistband to attach to my cartridge pleats, I'm doubling that, but I'm having it fold. So I'm just going to cut out my fabric already folded and use that 3-inch waistband that I just cut as basically my pattern for this other waistband. We're working smarter, not harder here, especially with all of the hand sewing that we had to do on this project. I mean, I love it, but man, was it tedious. And this is a double layer waistband. It was almost a triple layer, and then I was like, that's too much. We're doing too much here. I also could not decide what kind of closure I wanted for the cartridge skirt waistband, so I did give myself about 6 extra inches on it, and then you see me just kind of dividing it in half because I am going to put a generally thick elastic into this, just for a little bit of give on that skirt. There's so much going on underneath it that, you know, this being my first cartridge pleat skirt, I did not want to chance it. And I'm also just going to draw literally everything straight onto the fabric because I can. I want to say I made my elastic about 3 inches shorter than my actual fabric for that extra little bit of give. And then I always pin it right in the middle and sew straight down the middle as well as straight on the sides, especially when I'm doing a waistband like this. I like to secure it in a few spots before I actually have to stretch the elastic and not stretch the woven material while I'm sewing it in a zigzag to attach the waistband so that it won't roll around in there. I actually sewed 3 separate zigzag stitches onto the elastic on the back of the waistband, and then when I folded it over, I sewed 2 more so that it was all fully secured together before I did any of the hand stitching to attach the cartridge pleats to the elastic waistband. After all that, I decided to just leave that bottom of it raw just in case I wanted to make any changes, so I just went in with my pinking shears and finished it. Then I folded my cartridge pleats in half. I wish I would have marked the official halfway through this fabric, but, you know, this is probably good enough. And then I'm going to just line everything up as best as I can. And I ended up pinning this like every quarter of an inch, I'm not gonna lie. And I thought I had recorded it, but I actually didn't record any of the sewing process. So I just marked my 1/2 inch seam allowance on the back because I am leaving it open for when it is tied in the back. There will just be like a little opening that'll be totally hidden under the bodice. But I just folded that extra seam allowance under and then pinned that right at the very edge of the elastic on the waistband. And then to attach the cartridge pleats to the waistband, you go in, and because I had elastic, I had to stretch the elastic as I was sewing it, but you hand sew each bottom of the cartridge pleat onto the elastic by hand. I did go over my hand stitching a few times, and I also tried to do a little bit of a zigzag hand stitch just because, again, I used an elastic waistband, so you want to make sure it's zigzag so that it stretches with the elastic. We don't need any threads snapping in the moment.
And with this, wow, I hemmed it. We are done with this skirt. Yay! So I might have mucked up one of the closures. Okay, both of the closures on the back of the skirts, but that's no matter. I just turned them into lace-ups. I was gonna put a waistband in, not a waistband, a drawstring in this skirt's waistband, but then this is like a 1/4 inch thick, so went out the window. I was also going to do another layer of ruffle at the bottom of this skirt, but then I didn't feel like it, so then I didn't. You know, if I feel like doing it later, then we will, but for now, I'm feeling like being done with this skirt. Which, actually, I'm very proud of this whole costume, so hang on, my camera's dead right now, so it has to stay plugged in. So if this is awkward, it's not my fault. It's a little bit my fault. And with that, this main costume is done. Time for accessories. So we're getting to that, and I will see you for that. Bye, see you next time. My dog is fluffing his blanket.